Hey, I'm Mark Valley, and you're on the Break It Down show. Well, I'm on the Break It Down show. We're all on the Break It Down show right now. Let's break it down.
And now, the Break It Down show with John and Pete.
Let's break it down.
High-speed stuff now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's doing his own security contract.
Oh, okay.
Some guys never get out.
Yeah, I try to help those guys get out because we talked before we started recording about the threat world and how, like, I can go and I can make six figures laying on a tanker off the Somali coast, you know, doing piracy protection, which is a shitty living, and then you can go play for 6 months or balance out what you want, you know, and so then you come back, you spend your money, your girlfriend leaves you, and you're like, well, I may as well go back, and then you go back, and it's just hard to get out of that. Or you can say, hey, I'm a SEAL with a lot of time laying on the deck of a tanker. I'd like a job in your bank. And they look at you like, what the fuck are you talking about? You don't have a job for you. So he's like, no,
I could lay on the roof.
Right. Yeah, I'm teachable. I can learn things. We have Mark Valley on the show with us today. You've seen Mark's work. Well, you've been Jack Deveraux. You've been Bobby Kennedy. You've been Superman and things. You were on Boston Legal. I would list all of the things, but there's frankly just too many things that you've been on. One of my favorite characters that you played was called the fair-haired resident.
On HBO, yeah. The fair. They wouldn't give me a name. I was like, dude, I just, haven't. Like, no, you're the fair hair. I think I gave him a name. I think it was Pete. I'm Pete.
Nice. Hi.
Yeah, well, I am Pete.
Hi, I'm Pete too. So some background thing. You've been in movies. You've done voice work and those kind of things. But before that, you were a West Point grad. Mm-hmm. So coming up into West Point, were you an academic horse in school? How did you get into West Point? Because that's not easy to do, first of all.
No. Yeah. I came from a small town upstate New York. Kind of a military family. My grandfather was in World War II. My uncle was drafted for Vietnam. Yeah, I remember at the time I was really close to my uncle. I was about 6 years old. I think it was 1969. It wasn't too long after the Tet Offensive. I told him, well, if you're going to Vietnam, I'm going too.
Nice.
Yeah. And he said, well, what are we going to do about this? You need a uniform. And I was like, all right. So I talked to my mother, and we looked through the Ames catalog, and I got like a little Marine uniform. I was all of like 6 years old.
I was going to say, you had to be young, yeah.
So, the little Marine, they had a hat, they had the core frame shoes, everything, right?
Wow, core frames, wow.
Right. I don't know what they called them back then. I went to his recruiter, like on the main street in our hometown. I walked in and gave him a little salute.
Yeah.
The recruiter was like, I'll be goddamned.
Yep.
I'm sorry, son. Well, you're too young, but come back later.
Yeah.
So that sort of planted a seed with. I wanted to go to a good college. I'd started getting good grades just to spite one of my teachers, I think like in 8th or 9th grade, and thought, oh, man, this is going to give me some opportunities. So I just continued to work at it, and I was good at math. I thought, well, I started looking at options, and I thought, well, West Point, wow, this is really something.
Yeah.
You graduate, they pay for education, you travel around. So I went and visited the place, and I just really liked it. I mean, the history, the athletics, there was like a physical component along with with the academic stuff. So I thought, this would be a really cool place to go. Yeah, I did sort of, I'd felt a calling as well that I was going to serve at some point. I thought, well, why not? Why not go in as an officer?
Yeah, why not?
So graduated and went to Germany, spent most of my time there.
So while you're at West Point, and maybe our listeners don't know, but we know because we're military guys, at West Point, you do pick an academic pursuit, but also a physical pursuit. Some guys pick fencing. Some guys pick football and play on the team. You played rugby.
Yeah.
And were you called to rugby similarly, or was that just like, this seems like this one's a good balance? Because you got to pick the right thing for you,
Yeah, you do. Yeah, it was funny because I played football in high school, but I was just too small. I didn't really grow until like my sophomore year, junior. I knew I wasn't going to make the football team, and I think another plebe in my unit had joined the rugby team. And just that company had a few guys that were on the team as well, and they said, Valley, come to practice.
Yeah.
So I went, and I was just, oh, man, I love that sport so much.
Was there ever another sport that you considered?
Oh, no.
No.
After I started that, it was just amazing.
This
is a combination. It's like basketball and football.
Yeah.
You're out, and it was a great way to, I think without rugby, I don't know if I would have gotten through the place because the afternoon, they had a spring season and a fall season.
Okay.
So after classes, I would just be out there on that grass, just kicking the ball as hard as I could and running and, the friends that I made and stuff and the camaraderie. It was just, there was just this kind of grubby chaos that would go on, which balanced well with the discipline and the straight lines and your underwear being folded and so forth.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what kind of because I know a lot about West. First off, one of the things I've noticed about West Point graduates is they're professionally advanced ahead of their peers that went the other way, through like ROTC, that kind of thing. But the ROTC people tend to be more socially advanced. Like they've had more variety of interactions where you guys were in a professional institution learning how to do things.
Yeah.
And it's
you can walk into a room. Yeah. Somebody from ROTC will suddenly just not feel uncomfortable in a room with like half civilians, half military, talking, eating. When do I sit down? Who do I talk to? Whereas a West Pointer could probably tell you why Vietnam didn't work, and maybe a little bit about coin theory.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, talking about this valley and how it resembles this battle. All that stuff. Or even just professionally, just the ability to sit at your desk and do what the fuck you're told for 8 hours straight after you've already done your work, all the bonus work.
Really?
Yeah, the West Point people don't struggle with that as much because they're in that kind of shape, whereas the ROTC guys, they need more of that interaction doing other things. That's just one of the things I've noticed. As you went through West Point, like what kind of a guy were you? Were you, were you kind of all, because there's like the all-around people. Yeah. There's the people that are like, bring me anything, I will polish it, but I suck at organizing my drawer. Everybody's trying to find their way to get in and get everything organized, at least initially, until you get your system down. What kind of a guy do you think you were there?
I was really surprised because it all sort of came together for me. I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I have a creative side, but I showed up that first day at West Point and people were running around and getting their hair cut and they're being humiliated and they're panicking and they're sweating, and I just thought, what's so hard? You walk up to somebody, you stand straight, you look him in the eye, you say who you are, they tell you what to do, and you go do it. If you get it done in time, you got some free time. The first day, which is supposed to be hell for me, was like, I don't know. Guys, they kind of tell you, they give you a book of rules.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is fantastic. I'm not subject to the whims of, some capricious authority or something.
Right.
It's like, here's the way it's done.
So you worked well within the structure.
Kind of like a system, and I'm kind of a system. I was a math major. I studied system. I'm kind of a systems guy. And once I kind of look at the system and kind of saw it, I thought, okay, I know how I can do it.
You saw rugby in the same way too. You could see a system there that made sense to you with the lines and everything.
It made some sense. Yeah.
Okay. And so you graduate, you go to Germany, and what was your branch again?
Engineers.
Yeah. So engineers, and literally no one works harder than engineers.
I love being an engineer because engineer was like, you do all the grubby stuff with the infantry and the tanks and stuff, but they were like, man, we're in a pickle. Fuck. Get an engineer up here. Let's figure this out.
Yeah. You'll get a kick out of this. So whenever I go anywhere and I'm talking with commanders, I always impress upon them that the engineer probably is the most powerful weapon system they have. I don't mean in terms of closing with and destroying the enemy. I mean in terms of I can move cement. I have a backloader that I'm going to constantly work on force protection with. Or you can make it a tool for the local government. And so if people come to the government and say, hey, this road over here is just full of ruts. Hey, Governor, what can you do to fill that? Well, how about I get the Army to come out there and pat that thing down? Yeah. And so then they go, really, the Army will do that? Yeah, I'll get them to do it. So now the governor is doing something. And then when they march that backloader out, it's the Afghan police and Army that march it out to keep it safe. And then, you bring out the people to see this whole exercise.
We found that one time in Germany. We used to train in Bergen-Belsen, which was the old, obviously, the concentration camp. It was kind of a spooky place, but I remember we were in Berlin and we would go there and train, but they'd give us money to build things, and then we would blow them up.
Right.
We'd just build a house.
Yes.
We built like a freeway overpass.
Yeah.
Like a real.
Yeah.
And then just blew it up. Just stuff that we would need to know in case the Russians attacked. And we built this one stretch of road that went kind of along this demolitions area. I mean, it was great. It was, compacted, gravel. It was all kind of tapered, and it had the shoulders. It was like a little strip of Autobahn, And then we trucked out there with our shape charges and we're getting all ready to blow it straight to hell. And the Germans come out and they're like, stop. can we keep it? So we said, all right. So I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
The Germans are good at making roads. They wanted a road from us. So
Yeah, absolutely. So another thing, this is a funny engineer-based story. So a new unit comes in, it's brigade. Brigade's about 5,000 people. They come in and they're going to push south in Afghanistan, and they're going to push the Taliban right out of this province. And we'd been there for a long time, my team. And so we're like, that's a great plan. It's wintertime, and vehicles here are all broken because they've been here for 10, 15 years. And they just don't maintain them well. And there's really no roads. Yeah, but we drive over anything. Like, yeah, but you don't. You don't, not here. Like, you drive off into a ditch, and then you have to self-recover in the snow. You'll be out there for 10 to 20 hours and then have to turn around and come back because it's just that rugged here. But, the Army can't be told anything. So they're like, we prepared for this. So they start working on pushing south and start encountering these problems of, the wheel fell off this entire thing, or this vehicle will not stay upright. It constantly tips over because it's just so damaged, and they just keep driving. It's like having an old horse, and they just keep driving it and driving it. And so what put the nail in the coffin for this whole battle plan was up in a mountain pass, and that's like the mountain pass they had planned. Like, this is where everything's going. The biggest boulder in the world fell into that mountain pass. And we knew about it because we're connected to the people. And they're like, hey, the funniest thing happened. The giant boulder fell into the pass. And they kind of laughed about it. So we told them, like, hey, that pass that you're trying to go through, Army man, it's completely blocked by a boulder. And then the engineer's like, bullshit, I'll blow it up. Like, we're like, it has a name, and it's called the thing that cannot be blown up. Like, that's literally what the Afghans called. Like, this thing's so big, it's bigger than a house. Back and forth over the course of a week. Keep in mind, the engineer never saw this thing. He just heard about it. And so we're like, we'll get you a picture of it. You get a picture, and there is no shit, like the biggest boulder you'd ever seen. And he looks at that, and he's like, oh, this might be a problem. Because he thought he could move it or blow it up or something. Yeah. And so the more they looked at it, the more they realized that if they did anything, the other rocks in the area would just come down, and they would constantly fill this gorge. So it would make it worse because little cars could get through. But big cars, no way. So anything Army size was never going to go through there. And so finally they had to go, this rock can't be moved. Nothing we have can pull it. We certainly can't blow it up. They thought about, like, quartering it, like, with pneumatic tools, but they didn't have anything like that was the scale to do that kind of job with. Yeah. So, in America, they could have moved that thing.
You want to hear a funny engineer story?
Yeah.
I was in Saudi Arabia, and the war had lasted like 4 days, and we're still stuck there shipping stuff back. I met this chaplain who had access to a Humvee, and he would take me into town. We'd go to, like, restaurants in Deveraux in Saudi Arabia. He said, listen, I need to talk to you about something, and you have to promise you won't tell anyone whatsoever. And I said, I won't say a thing. He said, I'm going to take you to meet some people, and anyone in this room could be arrested and thrown in prison or thrown out of the country.
All right.
All right, cool, let's do it. So we drive along. We're going through these hard scrabble roads, and we get out to this house. We go in, we sit in a living room, and the tiles are always floors are always made of tiles and stuff, right? If it's not sand. But in Saudi Arabia, so we're sitting around, and there's all these people in there, Lebanese dude, there's one Saudi, and there's a couple of American women, older, like nuns.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And you sit down, everybody starts going around in a circle saying how, like, telling their, like, born-again Christians have a story about how they, right? And they start going around to their story, and of course they get to me, and I'm like, I was born Catholic. I believe in God. I didn't get struck in the desert or anything. They're like, well, you'll do. That's fine. And they're like, what is this thing here? It's like, oh, it's a castle. It means I'm an engineer. And they all kind of look at each other, and their eyes widen. Yeah. And they're like, we need to take you to another place, and you can't tell anyone at all that you saw this. Or else people could be. I'm like, all right, I get it. But I was in for like, how bad could it be? But of course, the religious police in Saudi Arabia are such that if you practice any other religion, if you're a foreigner, you're out of the country. You could actually, I don't know, what do they do?
Yeah,
they could kill you.
Yeah, right? They chop your head off.
Yeah. So I was like, well, all right, I could use some excitement. The war was over, so we go to. We go into town, like in Deveraux, right? Yeah. And we're driving around, and we go by this one, like, walled kind of like a Bodapod, right?
Yeah.
And we go through this wall, and we go into this building, and it's about 4 stories high. We take the stairs in the back up to the top. There's a whole floor, probably about twice as big as Zanku Chicken here on Sunset.
Yeah.
There's, like, some windows, but it's night, and they can't see out, and it's still very quiet. And this one nun who's in charge of it, she said, this is going to be the first Christian church in Saudi Arabia. Don't tell anybody. I was like, how did you? She goes, we bought the whole building. I was like, who bought the whole building? They're just like, people bought the whole. We have donors.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, cool. What? And they're like, well, I was like, well, what's your plan here? And they're like, well, we really think that this entire war is actually an opportunity for Christianity to spread into the Arabian Peninsula, and we're taking this seriously.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, all right, cool. What can I do to help you guys? Like the war. And they said, well, we need to. You see these. There were these beams set up. There was like 6 separate beams in the middle of the building, and they said we need to remove these so we can have an altar here that can face everyone. I said, all right, let me take a look around. I'm making some structural engineering, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of took a look around. I was like, can I see the roof? And I'm like, yeah, I can see the roof. And I went to the floor down below, and there's the same ones all the way. I was like, you can't. There were 3 of them right down the middle. I was like, you can't move these. And like, excuse me?
Yeah.
I was like, you can't, or the building will just kind of collapse like a deck of cards.
Yeah.
And that was like not the answer that the engineer brought from God was supposed to give them. So I was just like summarily, kicked out of the place. I never heard how their church turned out. But anyway, that was my engineer story. I couldn't help them. But.
Yeah, well, that's we often struggle to help people. Let's talk a little bit about, you've done all these acting things. I know you're starting to work on writing and creating. What? Tell me about your transition. Obviously, you're still going to do acting because that pays the bills, but your heart seems to be more on the creative side. Mm-hmm. How's that? Like, how did you recognize that? Kind of give us some background on how that process came along, that change of thought came along.
I think it first started when I was a young lieutenant, and I just got into this unit, and I was the only American in this village. I was a little lonely, and I thought, well, why don't I just keep a journal? So I started keeping journals ever since I was commissioned, and then I got into reading, and I was always a math science guy.
Right.
I was into reading a lot. So I read a lot and traveled Europe and experienced some kind of literary stuff. And I always wanted to write, never really got around to it. I was in the Army, I came back. One of the first things I did was about 15 years ago, was I did a one-person show about, like, kind of answer the question we're talking about here. Why did I go in the Army, what I do, and why did I ultimately get out? And it started from something I did with the Groundlings. I was writing some sketches, like my grandfather showing me like his stuff that he brought back from World War II, like a saber and a Nazi armband, all these crazy things. And it started out like that, and then it went into my story, and it was a lot of fun. I ended up playing a lot of different characters, and I just remember this rush, this kind of feeling like, wow, I'd performed something in my own voice. Around that time, I started getting work as an actor, and I think probably the next 15 years I worked as a series regular pretty much.
Right.
I was just working hard, as an actor, and working with really good writers and really good people. Yeah, it kept me occupied, kept me out of the writing game to some extent. Then I started writing. I thought, I want to write memoir stuff, just write what my experiences were. I was cruising into middle age and feeling reflective, and I thought, you know what? I think I'll put down some of these stories that I sit around and tell people.
Sure.
And they kind of look at me like, you're going to tell me the whole story right now? Maybe you should put it in a book or something.
Yeah.
So I thought, I started writing stuff, and I went to Berlin where I was stationed just before the wall came down. I was there when the wall came down, and it was a fun place. And talk about like counter intelligence. I mean, everybody had to be a CI person.
Sure.
There, So I started writing some stuff, and then I thought, what would be cool is if I wrote about like somebody who wasn't me. Came up with an idea, and I knew somebody else. I met someone else who was wanted to do something that took place in Berlin. He was an experienced writer, so we co-wrote a pilot, and that's what I was pitching last week. Is a pilot about. It's basically an ex-operative. He's haunted. His life's gone off on a tangent since an event that happened at a border crossing in 1988, and but he gets called back by his old handler to finish some unfinished business.
Right.
And they have to deal with the Stasi and of course the Russians, and there's this. As I was doing the research, that was what was so much fun, because I got into finding out about all the stuff that the Russians were doing on the east side of Berlin, and then I would go over there and visit, And one of the things that really struck me about that was I hadn't been back in 20 years, and it felt like I guess maybe guys, who go back to a place where it was really exciting, like maybe Vietnam or someplace else, you go back and you feel like, oh my God, this is happening. The past and the present are happening at the same time.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, flashbacks aside, this is like, whoa, this is, wait, you're almost expecting somebody.
Yeah.
Like, I can't be standing here because the Russians are going to.
Right. Yeah.
Or the Volkspolizei are going to. So that I integrated into the story as well. And it also works because we have a backstory that weaves into the present. So I kind of took my own feeling when I went back there and worked it into a story. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
So now we're trying to sell it, so we'll see what happens.
How's the pitching gone? Has it gone all right?
It's gone great. I mean, I'd never pitched anything before.
Mm-hmm.
Talking for 30 minutes and working with a partner, going back and forth, going through the whole script,
yeah,
kind of planning out this season 1 and season 2.
Yeah. I should probably say, too, we met through Hilliard Guess, his Screenwriters Rant Room. You were on that. It's John and I record in Hilliard's office all the time. We love him. If you guys want to know more about Mark, definitely listen to that episode because you put down some great things in that episode. I just loved it. Like,
thanks.
Like about wheeling around a corner with a fellow actor. That's great. And a military guy who does drill and ceremony would know that the inside guy, you're doing quarter or half steps maybe. So, yeah, when you act side by side with someone, if the person on the inside wants to, they can make the turn fast, and then the other actor has to hurry to keep
like
up.
They're running after you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you were to block it so that you prevented that, you and Kevin Spacey would stop and make the point so you could make the turn in the moment, and then
or he would slow down thinking.
Exactly.
Look at his shoes and be like, I don't know about that.
Right. Yeah. So it's funny to hear that, and just the different ways that you guys sort of, if you're not getting along, how you can openly combat each other.
Subtle sabotage.
Yes, subtle sabotage. Yeah.
Hey, everybody, this is John.
And this is Pete.
You know what we do?
What do we do?
We tell stories.
We sure do.
And you should tell your story. You should tell the story of your company, your organization,
your life,
and what makes you special at what you do.
Write that book by talking it out.
That's right. Talk it out. Chapters in podcast form.
And how would you do that if you didn't know what to do?
You would call John and Pete.
What? Yes.
You would call John and Pete. Where do they call us?
Well, you can go to breakitdownshow.com for one.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can enter a comment, or you could go to Twitter.
At JohnLG69.
And I'm at Pete A. Turner on Twitter. Say, hey, help me tell stories. Tell me where to go. Go to the website. See where we have our classes on how to do podcasting. It's all there. It's all available. It's all right now.
Break it down.
So it's a fantastic episode. You guys definitely check it out. So back to you writing this story and trying to figure out what it is. You go out and pitch. When you go there, is that a performance for you? I mean, are you like, hi, I'm fair-haired Mark Valley. I'm here to pitch you this thing, and they go, what the hell is he doing here? That's just a good-looking soap star guy. Or are they able to take you seriously the second you walk in? What do you do?
Well, I'm making a transition.
Yeah.
Right now. I think I walk in right now and I look like, Mark the actor had an idea, so he got this writer to work for free, and now they're trying to do something.
Right.
Whereas the reality is I've just been kind of working on my craft with like anybody else.
Yeah.
I don't really know what they think. I think a lot of people are much younger in those rooms, and they kind of, they've read my bio, they have an idea of what I've done, but they don't not necessarily, know me from anything in particular.
Yeah.
Maybe recent stuff like Fringe or Human Target, but they don't really know me that well. It's a difference, though. One of the things that I first thought it was going to be a performance. I kind of went in like, razzle dazzle, ba I realized that it's much more of a conversation, especially like with HBO. It was, hey, so what's it about? What's your story about?
Yeah.
Well, we get to that when we get 10 minutes in, and we'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But there's an organized pitch, so that I think it's good to have an organized pitch so that you can deliver it in a coherent fashion.
Sure.
A lot of people don't have time to waste, and they don't want to just spaghetti it on the wall with people and let them figure it out. So it's probably, I think it's, from my limited experience, it seems to work just going in and having something prepared, but being able to kind of riff with their questions after. But they say, don't perform it. Tell your story. Don't perform it.
Right.
But I can't help it.
Yeah, you're excited
We're
about
at the
it.
crossing.
Yeah, there we are.
Leather boots, steam, guard towers, weapons, lights flashing.
Yeah, well, you have to do some of that to create the
Yeah.
I mean, they are investing a lot of money in the show. Ultimately, they need to. There's got to be
that
something.
classic scene in The Player, right?
Yeah.
Chinese lanterns.
Yeah. You don't want to overdo it.
Because
that's
I'd
for
heard
sure.
this used to be a pitching. I mean, now you write the script, but there used to be people went around pitching ideas to each other.
Yeah. And then I don't know. I'm
They
sort of
did,
just.
yeah. Where's you from? You just got here.
I just moved here a while ago, and I'm not in the pitching business. I
You
just.
just came in from the desert.
Yeah, that's true. I did. Yeah, and I was tired of getting shot at. Wiped my face off. Like, hey, I need some
Tired
work.
of getting shot at. I was like, I gotta go. What are these guys are not getting? First of all, where are people not getting shot at?
Yeah. You want to talk about culture shock? I came back and I started trying to do yoga because I needed to work on, the health part, sure, but just the overall me part and start working on being home. And so I'd be in there with a bunch of middle-aged ladies like doing poses and everything, and I'm like, 3 months ago it was all 18-year-old like just like testosterone dudes.
I thought it'd be
you know?
kind of funny. They always say, I used to like, don't forget to breathe, and you're probably thinking, I was pinned down for 8 hours by mortars, and I didn't forget to breathe. I don't think I'm gonna forget.
Yeah, actually, there's a thing just like that. So I needed some private lessons, so I paid for some private lessons. The lady's like, "Okay, I want you to soft focus on that rose over there," and I'm like, "Got it." She's like, "That doesn't sound soft." I'm like, "Nope, I see every petal on that
I'm
rose."
squeezing it, and the thorns are ripping into my
She's
flesh.
like, "That sounds like a laser focus," and I'm like, "It is. That's the only one I have."
And I've got to keep it on there. I got to keep it on target until it gets hit.
Yeah. And then there's ducks. There's ducks walking behind me. She's like, "Those are just ducks," and I'm like, "All right." Yes, they are. But yeah. You come back in from the war zone thing, and it takes
Are
a
you
while.
back?
Oh yeah, I'm back. I've been back for a while now. But
No, I mean like really back.
yeah, it does. There's
There's
time frames.
You feel like you catch your breath at some point, like
yeah, but there are things that there are traps that will get you focused in the wrong direction, and your next thing you know, you're putting your energy into things that you don't need to put your energy into. Like you really are fine at this festival, even though there's people all around you, and there's, so you can invest in. It's just like anything else. If you get overly concerned about everything, all you ever are is concerned. So you just accept certain things that are they just are the way they are. It's patterns though for me for sure too. I see the patterns. It's more about like I was at a festival a couple weeks ago, and there was just a lot of milling around people and crowds. And I know I don't want to be in the middle of the crowd because I don't want to anyhow, but I just don't want all the pushing on my body and the proximity and the hands and everything. And that makes me feel in ways that aren't reality because I really am safe there. So when I start to do that, my pattern would be to go, well, fuck that. I'm going to go to the middle of this crowd. And defy that thing. And that leads to the next bad decision, which leads to me, punching someone in the face or them punching me in the, or something bad happens from that. And so I learned the pattern I learned was to go at some point, what would I do? Now do the opposite thing, oh, wow. So soft is just as strong as hard and just rewiring those things, that I'm more patient, more tolerant, more accepting. And then when something doesn't jive, I just get away from that thing.
But you still feel that thing you still feel that little trigger there.
There's a trigger there. Yeah.
You feel it.
For sure.
But you got a choice to react to it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the pattern that my trigger response initially would be goes towards, someone having something bad happen. It doesn't have to be violent, but just it's a bad path. And you start to lose control over your next 5 minutes, next thing or whatever it is. Whereas if you recognize that's the point where the decision comes in, let me make this different decision and just walk away from it, And some of that's maturity, because I don't need to fight everybody, that kind of thing. That's that part of that coming back thing for sure. You get back physically in a matter of hours, and like mentally you arrive maybe 2 weeks later or so. Mm-hmm. But it's a slower transition. But then like emotionally, it takes a long time to be able to just go, it's fine here. Everything here is good, Yeah. Because everything's so intense. So
because with the Gulf War, it was pretty intense. I lost some friends. I was never like in a shooting combat.
Right.
There were like Scud missiles, and it was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
You put your mask on and you wait.
Yeah.
I was like, my god, damn.
And you're saying put your mask on. What the listeners?
You're waiting, and then you see
God. Yeah.
Well, we get 75% of them.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, I can go to sleep now.
Yeah.
So, and it was, one one landed once. I mean, it was a little hectic, but I couldn't imagine what you guys go through. But I remember coming back and feeling like, there was something about it I couldn't quite put my finger on.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it. I didn't know what it meant to me, or I
Right.
hadn't created a meaning for it.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think we all kind of create a meaning.
You have to find some. You have to, if you can, you sort through that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have it. Some guys just have it automatically. You know, it's like, I believe in America.
Yeah.
I did what I did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So some people just have it, but sometimes you got to work it out. But that's what I mean. Writing this one person's story helped me out quite a bit. And I like to help out with the Writers Guild. They got an actors workshop they do once. So you should do it
Yeah, I definitely will. Yeah, I'll definitely not check it out.
next year.
One of the things that they do now is they've got, those radars now look for incoming things. So they try to intercept stuff, but also sometimes they try to warn you. So as you walk, you're thinking, where should I go now if a mortar comes? And now. Like every 10 feet, you should always be aware of where the place to safety is.
I guess, 6 seconds or something.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then the sound you don't want to hear is this: incoming, 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 incoming. So that lets you know, like, right now, where you go. Like, it really is coming in. And there was a song, and I can't remember the song, but they had that first note of incoming.
Right. Yeah.
And it would just, that song would grate on me because it was like,
Yeah.
kind of like, oh my God. And I didn't freak out or stress out about mortars. You become very calm. You got scuds. It was like, yeah, there's going to be scuds coming in every night starting right about now at 5, and it's part of it sounds crazy, but it's part of your life. It's like part of what you do. But all of the things mixed together make a real salad that is you, and that sound, that incoming, like, wow, it's always there.
Feeling, I at West Point, this isn't as bad as incoming, but at West Point, when you're a freshman, if an upperclassman knocked on your door,
Yeah.
you had to pop to attention.
Right.
And you knew it was an officer because they knocked twice. Knock. Right?
Yeah.
It was just boom.
Yeah.
Right attention.
Right.
If you didn't get to attention, it was like, Tamara, you get kicked out.
Yeah.
So,
Right. Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And that's a whole year of that kind of
Right.
pressure. And I never thought anything about it until I'm working as an actor. I think, God, when was it? I was working on a show, and it was like 20 years, some years later.
Yes.
And this one AD was a little bit kind of wired. He was a little nervous, and he would always go, I would jump up, and stand there. And I said to him, I was like, listen, could you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Dave?" And he's like, yeah, whatever you want. I was like, listen, could you knock 3 times?
Right.
Instead of 2?
Yeah.
And he's like,
Yeah.
I was like, I just went to this military school, and 2, I was just complete. He's like, go for Jim. I'm over here talking with Mark about this,
Yeah.
So it was. I realized, you know what? I'm just gonna have to get a pair of sandals instead of complaining about the floor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's
Well,
exactly it.
I just gotta figure out a way to get it.
Yeah.
to get through it with 2 knocks. But.
Yeah, Mark is going to snap if we don't knock 3 times.
Right. Don't knock twice on Mark's trailer.
Right. TMZ headline,
Can I
Mark
look you in
Valley.
the eye too, or is that off limits?
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, go ahead, look me in the eye.
Yeah.
Don't knock twice, dude.
Yeah, don't knock twice. But
So,
those
'cause
things exist.
you can start to build this, artificial world around your neuroses, and then you start getting into trouble.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
start building
Yeah.
bombs. And,
Well, you just you put yourself into a worse situation than you were before, and you like no one ends up eating out of a dumpster. There's 100 choices that led to that point.
To that point, yeah.
So yeah, if you don't, someone who's considering ending their life or whatever it's going to be has passed that decision already, and now they're they have worse and worse decisions, and the options are shittier options. So yeah, that's a fight to fight to realize, to have the strength to realize it, to actually have the presence to go, this is not the way I want to live my life. I'm going to make conscious efforts to avoid this whole thing, and not to avoid it because I'm soft, but because I don't want this. I want something else. So it's interesting.
I don't want to be eaten out of the dumpster.
Right, exactly. Yes.
I'd go to Zanku Chicken. I'd eat out of a Zanku Chicken dumpster because people throw so much food away.
Yes. Yeah, I'm keeping my extra Zanku because I'm going to eat this. We're coming up on the end of your time. We're just at 1:05 right now. I don't want to keep it too long, but I would love to have you come back.
I'd love to come back, man.
Yeah. Have you come down, have John sit in with us too, and then anytime I can provide any kind of like modern military color,
I'd
be glad to, because there's so many great stories. There's like it's absolutely a MASH type movie in the modern combat thing, because I will tell you right now, like I've been on over 1,000 combat missions, and I would say, I was trying to think today, I was talking to my buddy.
1,000 combat missions.
But most of them, there's no combat. It's just you're out there and you may be in a fight, but you don't know until someone pushes a button, So you live with the tension. It could be around every corner, but then you go back and you're like, hey, today we didn't die. Everybody's good. High fives, but you still bear the weight of that fight that could have happened.
Times.
Yeah. And then there are the times when it actually happens. And it's so, because like a lot of the movies are close. Some of the fighting is really heavy, but most of it's instant fighting, like bomb, shots, response, there's response, our response, and then over, 30 seconds, 10 minutes tops. Because by then, if we're on foot patrol, you're already out of ammo anyhow. I mean,
they want to move before
they don't want to. Yeah, they don't want to fight. They want to ambush and then get out. And then we have so much weight in our protective posture that you've carried a basic load, would you want to triple that? Fuck no. No. And that would be, not even 1,000 rounds that you have to carry around for an M16. So if you can't even reliably carry 600 rounds around, you don't want to be in a long firefight yourself.
Yeah.
So it's the modern combat thing that we just don't see that very often. It's more ambushes. It's more mortars coming in. A guy puts 3 mortars in a tube and then leaves. So you can never catch that guy, or the one time you do, that's another dude that's going to replace him. But modern combatant commanders struggle with that because they want to protect their folks, but you can't go out. You end up fucking with more people trying to find that one guy and getting lied to all the time. It ends up making it worse. So you have to balance the constant threat with the actual threat you can deal with. So there's a lot of stories in that for commanders who've been taught all these certain ways to
but 1,000 missions, man. You got to write. Have you written a book?
No, I'm working on it, like all people. I'm working on it.
Oh, do it.
Yeah. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories. Yeah,
that's like...
Yeah. 1,000 patrols, 1,000 stories. There's stories in all of them. It's more about us, less about them, because we want so badly. I mean, you think about like you're a West Point grad. If you spent your time preparing to be out, and engineers engage with partners all the time now from foreign militaries. So, you've spent your time with your STEM-based education, and you're super smart to get through that. You've learned about Patton and how he approached fights, and Rommel and how he countered that, and fight. Everything's based on that. Now you sit across from your counterpart who may or may not be an engineer, but your job is to partner with this person. And the commander's like, you've got to fill this billet for all these Afghan people. They've got to fill that. You've got to build wells. You got to. And so you're compelled by your commander to jam all this stuff down your partner's neck. Meanwhile, they're like, hey, listen, I'm trying to not get blown up by my neighbor. You want to chill the fuck out a little bit? And that's what I see. I sit back and I'm like, this guy, like you'd watch the body language of like the Afghan or Iraqi partner, and the commander's sitting there, and this guy's like an Iraqi colonel, right? And he's talking to an American lieutenant, and the lieutenant's just pounding and repeating his commander's message. Meanwhile, the Iraqi commander's like fiddling with his desk, moving his papers, cleaning his glasses, moving his papers, It's like anything to do anything, like just absolutely enduring that lieutenant's presence, Yeah. And then I got to go back to the commander and be like, you told me to watch you, Lieutenant. Here's what I'm seeing,
Right.
And he's like, well, we're just not prepared for this. This isn't the fight we signed up for, My lieutenant's a smart kid, but he learned about Rommel and Ben Patton,
It was funny. I was a new lieutenant, and I was a brand new lieutenant, and I was gung-ho as fuck.
Sure, right.
And I was like, listen, guys, I'm not here to be your friend. I get and I showed up.
Yes.
I knew something was wrong when I came back to my office, right? I mean, it was shared by everybody. They had a picture of George Patton, right, behind a flag, and it said, good luck, son. I was like, well, at least I got a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And then I remember having one meeting with this is just squad leaders.
Yeah.
They're like, sir. I'm like, yeah, like, could you just, God bless them though. They're like,
yeah.
We want to, because I worked my ass off,
right.
and they could see that. But they were like, was like at night. We're like at Grafenveer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
smoking. It's like, sir, we want to talk to you about something. They're kind of looking at each other like they've been talking. Like, we're wondering if you could just like talk to us like we're people.
Yeah.
Just like regular people. I'm like, full of West Point, right?
Yeah.
Still Butterbar. I was like, yeah. How do you? Yeah, let me. I'm gonna try it, guys. I'm gonna do my best, guys. I'm gonna see.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see what I could do. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. 3 years later.
That's
3 years later, I'm bumming cigarettes from them.
Sure.
Like, you know what? You know.
Right. That's that mix where you have to catch up with the ROTC guy.
Yeah.
Because he can do that,
Yeah.
but he's not going to outwork you. The other thing lieutenants do is they're like, I'm going to stay up for this whole, 8-day exercise. Like, dude, please don't do that.
Yeah,
Please
you're
don't.
gonna start hallucinating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know that anything after about 20 hours that
Wow.
I'll soon after that start hallucinating, and I'll make up wild ass shit. Nothing dangerous, but like I'll start waving to people that aren't there.
Dragons.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I've literally sat there and imagined that I turned the page of a book, and then like, oh man, I got to get some sleep. And look down. There's not even a book there. And I'm like, did I have a book here a minute ago? My friend's like, nope, you've been sitting there just, I don't know, thinking. And I'm like, yeah.
What was in that book?
The
That's
answers.
a whole chapter of your book.
Yeah. Well, that's Lieutenant story. So we had this patrol we were going to go on, and this guy was super gung-ho. He's a little tiny guy, West Point guy. You could tell. I don't even have to ask. I know this guy's a West Point guy. And every upward angle he took, yeah, exactly.
Right?
He
Like,
took the hardest one, because he was lieutenant. And he was cocksure, and he was tiny. He was going to prove himself. So he would walk up. And you're like, you just took the steepest path up this thing. And you've got, Afghan army, Afghan police, and us all on this patrol. And you are got your cock hard way to go up this hill. Meanwhile, everybody's paying the price. Not nobody, but a lot of us aren't in a condition to fight a fight right now. If a fight was to find us, and then he would pick the next hardest angle and hard and hard and hard. And it's like, what are you doing? Like we're all going to be here a year. You're going to break people, but he said, no, it was always about like proving himself. Meanwhile, like I got an interpreter who's 54 years old.
Yeah.
And so I went up to him and I'm like, hey, you're going to have to back off the pace. And like, I try to never tell the commander what to do. I'm like, you have to back off the pace. He's like, well, you guys should be out here if you can't hang. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to have to back off the pace because my guy needs to be with us. He actually speaks to language.
Some OGAs telling me what to do.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But it's so, and I'm sure that guy now, if he's in the Army, has mellowed out and he doesn't have to talk about himself all the time. But it takes a while, Yeah. So.
Yeah, I remember those guys, the same squad leaders, because later on in that exercise, I was like, all right, I started trying it. I was like, all right, what would you guys do? And he's like, I'd put a minefield on the other side of that hill.
Yeah.
Right there. And then these wily guys that had done it for a while. And
Yeah.
I was like, all right, cool, let's do that.
Yeah.
Sure enough, it's like, the whole battalion is.
Yeah.
It's an exercise, but it was like, oh, yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah.
And I talk to you guys like you're regular dudes, and then you help me, and we're just regular people sharing with each other.
I don't have to make all the decisions and get them all right myself. Turns out this E7, who's done this exact exercise 8 times, will like, put the minefield over here.
Yeah.
Put a guard over here.
Yeah.
Done.
It's not a zero-sum game. Everybody can be respected.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. I don't want to take any more of your time because we're way past 1. So I thank you very much. Mark,
Really good time,
Valley,
man.
everybody.